Welcome to today's episode of Fresh Thinking Podcast by Snowden Optiro. Today I have with me Hamish Guthrie. He is the consultant manager for Snowden Optiro and mining studies. And we're going to talk a little bit about the cut-off grade. So welcome, Hamish.
Thanks, Pedro. Great to be here.
Today we are diving in a critical input in the mining planning and production process, cut-off grades. So what are all cut-off grades and how they can use it in the project, in mining projects, Hamish?
Thanks, Pedro. Simply, the cut-off grade defines the grade or grades in some ore bodies that a parcel of ore in the ground has a revenue greater than the cost to extract it to the saleable product. They're used as a starting point in assessing the economic mining inventory and then also on a daily basis on what material gets dug up and sent to the processing plant or sold as a product.
Yeah, interesting. And how they are cut-off grade used in applied in the project?
Yeah, so every project's different, but basically an operation needs to apply a cut-off grade to a parcel of ore. In open pits, everything needs to come out of a design pit, but not everything needs to go to the processing plant. So we need a cut-off grade to tell us, is that 0.5 gram of gold that's going? Is it what percentage of nickel or many other commodities? In underground mining, it's a little bit more complicated. We've got to capture the material can stay in the ground. We don't need to send it to the surface. So cut-off grades are applied at the point of mining the material, and it also needs other factors applied to it as well, so that we know that everything that comes out of the ground is economic before we send it to the plant. And for mining operations, the cut-off grade will be used at different times. So for our resources, we'll apply the cut-off grade to the resource model to see how much material potentially could be in the future. For our longer term plans, a lot more accuracy, and by the time that we're ready to mine the material, we'll be defining what's in the ground, what's going to be sent into a loader or a truck the very next day.
Interesting, we can see the difference in open pit and underground and in different stages of the project. So, but how these cut-off grades are assessed?
Yeah, so the cut-off grade needs to consider everything that either makes up the cost of that block of ore or the revenue. So for the revenue, it'll be, of course, the pricing. How much is that metal or that material worth? In some mines, there will be payabilities where we don't get 100% of what's in the ground. It has to go through processing plants or to treatment plants. Treatment and transport costs need to be considered. Selling costs, so taxes that governments and jurisdictions take, that needs to be built in. So that's on the revenue side, and on the cost side, the cut-off grade needs to cover the costs. So you need to have a good understanding of fixed and variable costs that a parcel of ore needs to pay for before it can get processed. And processing recoveries as well. Again, it'd be nice to get 100% of the material, but most processing plants will discard some of the ore.
Yes, and these cut-off grades, they normally are fixed by project and operation, or do you calculate this cut-off grade with variance with some factor inside of the same project and the same mine? How does it work?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Pedro. And all projects are just a little bit different. That, for example, just open pits versus underground, the material needs to be sent to the surface anyway. So we're really making a decision whether it's ore or waste at the top of the pit. And probably the other part of your question, how does it change from project to project? In terms of, at sometimes a higher cutoff will be applied. So they're choosing to leave more material either on the ground or potentially sending it to a stockpile. And that might be a good strategy of increasing margins and cash flows early in a project, but still have the ability to lower the cutoff and send that material through, especially if they're chasing production, lower production profiles. If we've got lower grade material, we can send that through. So that all feeds into the cutoff grade strategy.
Great. And what considerations should be included to the process?
Yeah, so cutoff grades can be easy sometimes with an easy deposit. That would be nice. But every ore body has got a different geological fingerprint. So, for example, if we take a cutoff grade that a lot of the ore body sits below, so we're potentially leaving material in the ground, then we might be jeopardising the overall potential for the project. So your cutoff grade strategy needs to match the geology, what sort of grade distribution you have in the ground. All mining methods and processing streams are slightly different, based on how difficult the material is to take out of the ground. But if you can lower your mining costs, for an example, an underground mine with a great big block cave or sub-level cave can have a very low cutoff grade because it's got a very low mining cost. The same thing for open pits. If they send material to a heap leach, that's a very low processing option. So they have a lower cutoff grade. Or if we could just send our material straight to ship, then that could also, for iron ore mines, have quite a low cutoff grade as well.
So in terms of the calculation of this cutoff grade, how do they change over the time and over the projects?
Yeah, so a cutoff grade is never set. We live in a world where pricing and mining costs change over time. So your cutoff grade strategy will need to change to adapt and match these trends. One way is to try to forecast which way your prices and your mining costs may go, but likely potentially on an annual budget cycle. Most mines will relook at their cutoff grades and respond accordingly. And also it may be a decision to change the cutoff grade. As we mentioned earlier, that the NPV of a project can substantially be a lot higher if you've got the ability to increase your cash flows early on in the project, but also sustain a life of mine production rate as well. So all these things are the cutoff grade influences.
So to wrap up things, cutoff grade seems to like a key input into the both long and short-term planning, and mine operations, and play a critical role in strategic decision making. So great insights, Hamish. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Pedro. I hope our listeners found the discussion useful.
That's all for today. This was our Fresh Thinking podcast. Please stay tuned for more podcasts in our YouTube and our Snowden Optiro channels. And see you in the next time.